Hey everyone, it's Stefano again from the GCMC, and this is the first video in OCR Central. And we figured as you start getting up to speed on the season, we figured we might as well just go over on-campus recruiting as a whole. As mentioned, there can be a lot going on during this time of the year, so we definitely want to make sure that you feel good and prepared for the season. So in this video, we're just going to walk through what is on-campus recruiting. So when it takes place, how it works, what to expect, and then we're going to understand how to use Zicklin CareerLink specifically for on-campus recruiting. Now, if you've already watched the Recruiting at Zicklin webinar to get access to your Zicklin CareerLink account, there will be some overlap, so feel free to fast forward if you like. But in it, I do go over how to look for and apply to on-campus recruiting positions, so definitely pay attention to that. And then we're also going to review OCR policies and terms of use. Pretty much all students agree to these policies and terms of use when they sign up through Zicklin CareerLink. So we just want to make sure that it's not like the typical scrolling through the terms of use. We want to make sure that you understand them because they do play a pretty major role as students start getting invited to interviews and offers for full-time and internship positions. So again, this is just going to be a really great overview of on-campus recruiting. So what is OCR? So you'll hear us say OCR interchangeably with on-campus recruiting, but really, like we said, it's pretty much a recruitment strategy used by different companies and organizations as they look to recruit for full-time and internship positions. And the way in which they do this is by multiple touch points here on campus. So the first being the career fair, which is coming up on the first week of September. And then specific firms will also host their individual information sessions where they'll talk about the firm overview and then talk about the specific groups that they're recruiting for and what their process looks like. And then they usually bring professionals to campus as well, typically alumni who now work at the firm, which is great. And then another touch point is also through networking events. Now, these networking events can be GCMC sponsored, but a majority of them are actually student club sponsored and run. So for the mid-sized firms, that includes their accounting roundtable, and then pretty much all of the student clubs and organizations will host specific either panels or talks by professionals at different firms, or speed networking events. So that's another way in which firms participate in on-campus recruiting. And then last but definitely not least, and probably one of the most important parts of OCR are the actual campus interviews. So firms will select a specific date to come to campus to hold interviews for the positions that they're recruiting for. And really depending on the firm, some of them will come to campus as a first round. So if it's a two-round process, they'll invite students to an interview at the Career Center for the first round, and then the second round would be on site. Whereas other firms are doing first round as video, pre-recorded video, and then the second rounds are on campus. So as you can tell, on-campus recruiting is a big umbrella um, of a recruitment strategy, and these are some of the touch points that the firms will use to recruit for those positions. So moving on to even more on OCR. So now that we know what OCR is and the different touch points that the firms like to have for recruitment, let's talk about some of the expectations, I guess. So what kind of positions, what kind of students are participating, what to expect, really. So in terms of participation, every year approximately 35 firms participate in on-campus recruiting to recruit for about 100 positions. So these 35 firms are a combination of career fair, info session, networking events, and on-campus interviews. And the 100 positions that they recruit for approximately, they include both internship and full-time. Now for the internship positions, again, these interviews will take place in fall, but these internships will actually begin in winter. So if it's a busy season internship, that'll begin sometime in January. Or if it's a summer internship, then that'll begin sometime in June. So again, they're recruiting for, a little bit of time out from when they're actually interviewing on campus. Now, for the full-time roles, they're recruiting even further out in advance. The full-time roles, pretty much all of them will begin next fall. So if you're interviewing for a full-time position now, this semester, the offer will be, if you do secure an offer, it'll be for starting next fall. So that's something to keep in mind, because something that you'll realize and find on the website is that um, one of the qualifiers to apply for some of these positions will be your graduation date. So, for example, if you're looking for a full-time position, you should ideally be graduating this December or by next summer, so that way you can start working full-time in fall. And then for internships, the firms usually want at least, a summer out, so that way you can intern with them for a semester, and then they can decide if they can convert you or want to convert you to full-time. So that's something else that, yeah, will be important in terms of qualifiers and trying to figure out which of those positions you can apply to. Now, in terms of what kind of positions these approximately 100 positions are made up of, it's primarily audit, tax, for sure. That's probably like 75 to 80% of the positions, but then there's also um, a good offering of also advisory, risk, and some IT roles. And they're, for the most part, open to accounting, tax, finance, IS, stats, and QMM students. So all of that you'll find within the actual job description. So it'll tell you if you can apply based on your specific academic program that's listed on your profile. And I guess to give you a big picture overview, so of the 35 firms that are recruiting for approximately 100 positions, about 400 of grad students participate in on-campus recruiting. So as you can tell, it's pretty competitive, because something to keep in mind is that although firms are recruiting for 100-ish positions on campus, they're also recruiting for these positions at other campuses too. So they're not just recruiting at Baruch, they're recruiting at some of our neighboring colleges here in New York. So it is definitely a competitive process. So because of that, I always like to remind students that on-campus recruiting is really just one of the many ways to secure jobs and internships. It's by no means the only way to get a job and internship. And the reason why I have this pie chart on here is because we've done research on our students securing job and internship positions, and for the most part, it's pretty evenly split in thirds. So a third of them, will get it through Baruch College, and that includes OCR, that includes Zicklin CareerLink, that includes, some other program or events within the college. So about a third of them recruit, or rather are able to secure the positions through the college. But then the other 2/3, it's outside of the college. So OCR, again, is only one of those other ways. The other ways to land positions that we have found has worked for our students is through actually referrals. So making connections through another student. So sometimes a classmate will refer another student for an internship position because they have already interned there, or networking with, personal or professional contacts with alumni especially. So that seems to be another third of the ways in which our students secure jobs and internships. And then the last, and it's usually one of the bigger chunks, is actually just by applying online. I know that sometimes applying online can seem a little discouraging because you don't know if you're ever going to hear back. And I think that's one of the biggest differences between applying online and going through OCR, is that through OCR you'll get a definite answer if you've been invited to interview or not. But when applying online, sometimes it can seem a little intimidating because you don't know if you're going to hear back. But in all honesty, our students really are succeeding in just applying online, be it Indeed or LinkedIn or the company's specific careers page. Um, our students are definitely having success. So as you get ready to participate in OCR, I think it's helpful, again, to have this like broad overview of what it is, how it works, what to expect, but also understand that this is only one of the ways that our students are securing positions. So if it's your first time going around, do your best, but do know that it's by no means the only way in which you can succeed. So now what I want to do is I want to walk you through Zicklin CareerLink. So again, if you already watched the Recruiting at Zicklin webinar to gain access to the site, then you're definitely going to see some similarities. So feel free to skip along. But if you haven't, or if this is your second year going into OCR, this could be a good refresher. Um, but for the most part, the site looks pretty similar still. So let me go ahead and pull up the site. Okay, so here is the Zicklin CareerLink homepage. Now, hopefully by now you've already gotten our welcome / unblocking your account email, which has instructions on how to create your account, access the account, and then unblock it. So if you are a new student this semester and your account is still blocked, you would see a big red banner up here. But don't worry, that doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. We just block all student accounts initially until they meet the two requirements. So you would have to complete the two requirements and then your account would be unblocked. So the two requirements are you have to watch a webinar similar to this, about like 10 minutes, that goes over the system, what it is, how to use it, terms and conditions, and then you have to take a corresponding quiz. And we just essentially want to make sure that you paid attention. So it's pretty simple. And then the second requirement is to have your resume reviewed and approved. And that can be either by coming here on site at the Career Center and meeting with an advisor, making an appointment. And we also offer bigger group settings and workshops where a career advisor will go over resume expectations and then they can review and approve your resume on site at the actual workshop. So I'll show you how to find that in a bit. Now, the best way to think of it as, or rather the best way to think of Zicklin CareerLink as is your site for jobs, internships, upcoming events, OCR especially, and other career resources. So this is really the one site to help you with that here on campus. And as you can see right here on the home page, we've got this rotating banner. So we've got the accounting career fair coming up early September. And again, even though it's called the Accounting Career Fair, it's open to accounting, tax, finance, QMM, IS students, really depending on the types of positions that they're recruiting for. Because again, it's not just audit and tax. There are some positions open in risk, advisory, IT, and more. So definitely check out some of that info. And then if you haven't already, be sure to download the mobile app. It's pretty user-friendly and it's kind of nice to have on you as you go about your day to get notifications and all that. So on this homepage, you'll find just a selection of jobs based on your academic profile. You'll find upcoming events on the right-hand side. Here are those resume sessions that I was talking about. There's a few coming up, so you can always RSVP to those. There's info again on the career fair, so you need to be eligible. Here are some of the firms that are participating, and the ones that are starred, they denote firms that are open to candidate who will require work visa sponsorship now or in the future, so you can see those here. And then we've also got info on who typically recruits with us throughout the academic year. And if you have any questions, just feel free to contact us. But if you have specific questions on a job or internship or an event, you can just contact me directly. That's my email address. So before we do anything on the site though, and again, if you already watched the Recruiting in Zicklin video, there's going to be some overlap, so feel free to fast forward. But the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that our profile information is up to date because this will determine the positions that we can apply to. So under my account, there's personal and academic. Academic is the most important because here it'll ask you when you're graduating, which program you're in, your function or academic program. So this is important for folks that I know there's a good number of individuals that are pursuing now an MS and IS, but had their BBA in accounting. So if that's the case, um, you might initially just have information systems, but if you only have information systems, you might be restricted from applying to some positions through OCR. So you want to make sure to add the accounting and tax function there as well, so that way you are eligible. And the GPA is pulled automatically each semester. So if you're an incoming student, you're probably going to have a 4.0, which would be great, but on your resume, you just want to make sure to list GPA first semester because you don't really have one yet. And then last, but definitely not least, we've got the work authorization question. So it'll ask you, are you currently on a student visa or will you require work visa sponsorship after you graduate? There's also another note in here. Be sure to select yes or no. So in my student profile, I answered that I will not require work visa sponsorship. So this, again, like the other parts of the academic profile section, are important because this will determine the kind of positions that we can apply to, especially in OCR. So once you've updated this information, be sure to save, and then we can go ahead and go back home. And after you've secured and updated your profile information, you definitely want to make sure that you've got documents on your profile. If you have any issues, be sure to look through this. But documents can include resume, cover letter, unofficial transcript. Some OCR positions will require that, or other documents, so you can label and select the type and upload them as you like. But that'll be, again, important because the system will pull the resume from your profile to apply to specific positions. So once you've updated your profile information, once you've uploaded your documents, then we can start searching for OCR jobs. So you can click jobs and search, or job search. They're really similar. But under the job postings, in the job search tab, you'll see that the system has this, I guess, carousel setup. They've got people with similar career interests are interested in these. People in your academic program are interested in these. The latest jobs, trending jobs. So these are probably ones that are getting a lot of views and applications. So you can just kind of like look through these. So this is pretty handy because you can just swipe along and you can favorite a job, or you can give it a thumbs down if you like, not interested. So this is pretty handy because you can scroll. I personally like to see all jobs page better. So this will have info if you experience any issues. But this will list pretty much all jobs that are currently live right now in the system. There's 209. And as you can see, some of them are OCR, campus interviews, others I'm not qualified for. This is a data architect role, but I have accounting and information systems as my background, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm not qualified. So the system will tell you when you won't qualify. So the best way to search for OCR positions is just by a keyword search. So you can just type in OCR, do search, and then it'll go from 200 plus to 28 results. Now, a note about this number is that we're still mid-August, so not all of the firms have uploaded their positions just yet. So this number will continue to grow as we get closer to the beginning of classes and once we get into the season. So don't worry, it will be bigger than this. But once we search by OCR, we can see all the positions that are up here. So we've got Markham, Witham, Friedman, Marks Paneth, NFA, Iser Mazar, Iser Amber, Grant Thornton, Crow, RSM, and others, and you can see all of these positions. So if we click into one of these, you'll see that it's kind of like the other postings, but under position type it just says OCR position, internship, work authorization. They are looking for individuals that will not require work visa sponsorship now or in the future. So you can kind of have a look at the description, the firm, what they're looking for. And then on the right-hand side, I know some of these dates can be a little confusing, but the two most important ones are the interview date. So Markham will be coming to campus on September 19th to interview for this position. So that's important. And then the other important date is the resume submission end. That's the deadline. So if I were interested in this, I would have until September 9th by end of day to apply to this. And if that were the case, I could just hit the apply button, select a resume from my profile, and click submit. And that would be it. Now, for on-campus recruiting for OCR positions, I will be notified if I've been selected or if I have not been selected for an interview. So that email usually comes a few days after the deadline. So usually a few days after that, I'll get an email from the Career Center saying, hey, you've been invited to interview for Markham, or unfortunately, you have not been invited to interview with Markham. So that's really important during OCR, is to be sure to check your email or your spam folder so that way you're not missing any communication about interviews or notices from a specific firm. So that's one example of an OCR position. And as you can tell, that one just required to upload a resume. But there are some that have a slightly different interview process or application process rather. So Crow, for example, again, you'll see OCR, internship, it's a campus interview, but it has this message on here. It says, this has a two-step application. So when you press the apply buttons, you have to follow the instructions there. So like the other, there's a job description, skills, qualifications, but again, this is a two-step application in that you have to click apply. And then here it says apply through Zicklin CareerLink as well as at this link. So if I were interested in this, I would click this link and fill out their application externally, and then I would also upload my resume through Zicklin CareerLink. Now, it's really important that if a firm outlines those two steps, that you follow them, because your application may not be considered without both of those steps. So be sure to pay attention to some of the application instructions on there. But again, this has the specific interview date, it's got the deadline, so definitely want to be mindful of those. Now, as you can tell, the other deadline was September 9th, this is September 25th, so all of the OCR positions have different deadlines because they're based on when they're interviewing. So they usually work backwards, so if they're interviewing on October 7th, that means that some of the other dates will then follow. So then there's a time period where students would sign up for interviews if they're selected, time period for the employer to review the application. So those are some of these other deadlines, but for you, again, the only ones that matter are when the interviews will be if you're selected and when the deadline is. So those are two examples of on-campus recruiting positions. Like the others, you can favorite some of these, and then those will end up here. So we've got the search tab, but under favorites, you'll see the two positions that I favorited earlier. And then this is where you will see your applications. So non-OCR and OCR applications would be here. So that way you can kind of keep track of the applications that you've submitted. So that is the search. So again, the easiest way to go about it is to search. I usually just search by keyword, OCR, search, and then you can see all of the OCR positions. Another way in which you can find OCR positions is interviews I qualify for, and then that'll filter it down. So I'm from 28 to 26, so I must not qualify for two. So that's another way in which you can look for positions on the site. Now, as you can tell, there's internship, there's full-time positions, but another OCR role that you'll see are Meet the Recruiter office hours. So these are applications where a recruiter is collecting resumes and they can select students that they would like to meet with during informal office hours where they can schedule either one-on-one or two-on-one meeting times to talk about the firm, get to know one another, ask any questions, maybe a question about a specific position or a question about a specific group that a student is interested in. So for these, they're formatted in the same way. So this is an OCR position with a recruiter. In this example, EY will consider applicants that will or will not. So both are considered and eligible in this. And then you'll see a description. So an EY recruiter will be at the Career Center to meet with current accounting, tax, finance, and CIS students. And then those will take place on September 12th. That deadline is September 6th. So we can go ahead and apply if you're interested. So like the full-time in internship positions, you would get a notice. You would get an email from the Career Center letting you know whether or not you've been selected for this office hour in this case. So let's go back home and then let's talk about events. All right, so here you will find all upcoming GCMC events. So that includes info sessions, resume workshops, job search groups, and all that, as well as student club events where the student clubs and organizations partner with firms and companies for either panel discussions or networking events. So all events will be listed on here. So as you can see, there's 65 right now. So I know this list can seem a little overwhelming. So there are ways in which you can filter for events and try to figure out which ones would be the best for you to attend. So as we reviewed earlier, part of on-campus recruiting, that big umbrella, is the career fair. So we can have a look at that first. So you'll see by searching career fair, some of these came up, and oh, there's actually a career fair prep workshop coming up, but you'll see the career fair in here. And on here, you'll see the name of the events, when it starts at noon, ends at 4, where it is, description, again, eligibility, participating firms, denoting the ones that will consider candidates who will require work visa sponsorship now and in the future. And then as always, if you have any questions, to let us know. So in this case, you can simply RSVP and it'll be added to your events. And then you can always cancel the RSVP if you like. Now, another part of the umbrella was info sessions. So we can search by info session, and you'll see there's 12 currently. So there's an info session coming up for KPMG's internal audit and assurance group. There's a firm-wide for PwC, firm-wide for KPMG, firm-wide for EY. Then there's a few that are hosted by graduate clubs. So the Grant Thornton info session is hosted by GBAP. Then you'll see the PwC China Sourcing Initiative info session as well. So these are China-based roles for students that are looking to either return or move or relocate to China. And you've also got Anderson Tax, JetBlue. So again, that's just another way to filter by event type. It's just the keyword. Now, again, this list seems like a lot. So another way to go about it is you can always check the calendar, my calendar, and you can do a week view. So if you're more of a visual learner, you can have a look at events that are coming up, let's say the week of August 27th, which is the first week of classes. So you'll see, oh, on Tuesday the 27th from 2:30 to 5:30, there's a resume workshop. So you can click into that and you can kind of organize your weeks in that way, and you can see some of the other events that are going on campus. So this is a little bit more visual if it's easier for you to understand or really just take in some of the information. So for this, you can click in, and for this, there just says more details to follow. So we can wait for some of those. Now, for events, like I mentioned, in addition to the info sessions, there are these resume workshops. So again, Tanuja will actually be hosting this, and she'll be reviewing how to make your resume stand out, how you use language that appeals, what you need to exclude, how to show skills that you have, and then requirements, before you attend. You want to make sure that your resume is in the GCMC required format, that you're following the guidelines. And again, in this session, this is really an intensive. And after this, again, if you haven't had your resume reviewed or approved yet, you can have it reviewed and approved on the spot. So that's pretty nice too. So we can RSVP for that. So definitely keep an eye out for some of these events. Definitely consider attending some of the general interest meetings by the student clubs and organizations, because they host a good number of events throughout the semester, especially during OCR. So you want to make sure to RSVP to those as soon as possible. And kind of like the job applications, some of the events have a different RSVP process. So some you can simply RSVP through here, and others still have an external link within their event description, be it an Eventbrite or some other form of external sign up. So you just want to make sure that you have a look at that. So the best way to do that is you'll see this one you can RSVP, this one you can't. So there's probably an external link in there. Now, as far as events, that's pretty much the easiest way to navigate it is just again by keyword or by using the calendar. So it's a little bit more visually appealing. So definitely want to stay up to date on those because so many events take place right on campus recruiting, be it the info sessions or networking events or anything like that. Coming along on the menu tab, you'll see that there's an interviews tab. So once you start applying to OCR positions, your requested interviews will come up here. So if I would have applied to the Crow, to the Markham, and the EY office hours, those applications would be listed here. And then if I were invited to an interview, it would be listed under scheduled interviews, and I would have to request or select the time rather. So this is really where your interview information will come up for OCR. You will receive an email. You will receive an email letting you know if you've been selected. You'll receive an email letting you know if you have not been selected. So definitely check your email. But then as those are coming through, this will be updated as well. And last but definitely not least, want to check out some resources. So in here we have different templates, we have other webinars, we have information on the internship course. So if you need to register and sign up, there's information on how to go ahead and do that. So definitely use some of these resources on here because they can definitely help you as you navigate on campus recruiting. So there's even tips for meet the recruiter office hours or how to withdraw an OCR application. So definitely want to have a look at some of those. And now actually in viewing some of these, I think it's helpful to again check the system and keep an eye out for emails. But for the job search, something that I forgot to mention is you can actually set up job alerts. So if you haven't yet, you can do OCR search and you can create a job alert. So in this case, the system will send you a message. You'll now get job alerts for the search. Whenever an OCR position comes up, you can get an email, which is pretty nice. So that way you don't have to just keep coming back into the system. You can just get a notification via email, and you can edit those in here. So you can also set the frequency if you want it daily, if you want some of these daily, or if you want to delete one or keep that one. So that's a pretty handy tool that I forgot to review, especially was reminded by some of the resources in here and withdrawing the application and all that. So this is Zicklin CareerLink. Again, it's really your home for OCR. It will house all of the jobs, internships, the upcoming events. It'll have the interview information, some resources to help you along the way, and you can even sign up for those job alerts so that way you are notified as some of those positions come through. So a lot of great resources, a lot of great information in here. Again, biggest thing is you just want to make sure that your academic info is up to date so that way you can start applying to some of those. And then as always, if you ever have any questions, just feel free to reach out to us via email and we're always happy to help. So at this time, let me go back into the PowerPoint and we can keep moving forward. So the last thing that we wanted to review is just the OCR policies in terms of use. So again, all students agreed to these when they initially signed up for their use of Zicklin CareerLink and the Career Center. But again, we just kind of want to highlight these because these are really important when it comes to OCR. Now, the first being is availability. So what this means is that as a student, you should only be applying to positions for which you're actually available for. So throughout the process, you'll start applying to a good number of positions and you're going to start getting selected for interviews. So if at some point you interview with a firm and you get an offer and you accept the offer, at that point you should really stop interviewing for other positions because you're no longer available. You have already committed to an internship, you've already committed to a job, so you're not available. So as soon as that happens, as soon as you receive an offer and you accept it, let me know, let the Career Center know, so that way we can let the firms know and you're not considered for other positions. And that's important because if you do go in for an interview, it's essentially a waste of time. You're wasting your time, you're wasting the company's time, and you're taking that opportunity away from a student who maybe doesn't have an offer yet. So you definitely want to be sure that you're only applying and interviewing for positions for which you're available for. And the same goes for work authorization. So if you will require work visa sponsorship at some point, but are applying to positions that unfortunately do not accept applications from those individuals, then again, it's just a waste of your time and a waste of the company's time because that um, will come out at some point in the interview process. So if you get an offer and then you have to disclose that, then at that point, you would no longer be considered. So that's the first policy on availability. The second is on actually applying. So as soon as you apply to a position, you're committing to a first round. So if you apply to something and you're invited and for some reason you no longer want to be considered, you're still expected to attend that first round interview because you have applied. And if you don't attend, there really should be a reason for that. It should be you either have another acceptance or you're just not available for the position at all. But again, once you apply, you do commit to that first round uh, interview, be it on campus or virtual. Then third is on professionalism. So we really expect our students to conduct themselves in a professional manner, be it online or in person. We expect you all to be responsive. So if you're invited to sign up for an interview, you should sign up as soon as possible. Because again, OCR, there's just so much happening that it's really important to be responsive because it affects the schedule, it affects the company. But if for some reason you do have scheduling for conflicts, be it a religious holiday or a class schedule, let us know. Um, Once you get the email from the Career Center, just say, hey, unfortunately, I can't sign up for this because, I have an exam or there's a religious holiday that I observe. Let us know. We'll work with you. But if you go, completely silent, that isn't living up to the professionalism standards that we have for everyone. So definitely just, be mindful of that. And then when it comes to accepting offers, you have to let us know. So that way we can, again, remove you from any other interview process. We can track it as a career outcome and success for you. So definitely let us know as soon as you accept an offer. And then in terms of reneging, this is probably the worst violation and the strongest policy of all is that if for some reason you do accept a position and then go back on your acceptance and no longer want the position, that would be considered reneging. And as you can imagine, that's just not in line with the professionalism standards that we have for everyone because you have already committed, but for some reason when you take that back, that's just really unacceptable. And it could be a very particular scenario, but whatever you do, just let us know first, consult with us first before you communicate with the firm. We understand that life happens, but reneging on a position is a huge recruiting violation, and it's not in line with the college, it's not in line with the Zicklin School of Business, and kind of like some of the other policies in terms of use, if you renege on an offer, you're essentially taking that opportunity away from the firm. Now they have a hiring need, and you also took that opportunity from someone else who could have gotten that offer and would have been happy to accept and keep the offer. So reneging is a huge violation. Now, if for some reason a student does not adhere to these policies in terms of use, unfortunately, there are consequences as agreed. Um, Usually, if a student does not meet these requirements, they'll get a note from the Career Center and then they'd have to meet with our leadership team, so our director. Um, And if for some reason they don't, they would unfortunately lose all GCMC access. So that includes the online access to Zicklin CareerLink, and that includes in-person or online career coaching sessions. And as a reminder, we offer lifetime career services, so definitely want to make sure that you follow all of these terms of use so that way you don't lose that as a resource because it's really valuable. And that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching the intro to OCR. I hope this was helpful, especially as we gear up for the season. I think it's always good if this is your second year going into the season to get a refresher, or if you're a new student coming on board, just getting up to speed on what OCR is, what to expect, how it works. Um, Especially, you may have gone through OCR at your undergraduate institution, or if you did, your undergrad here at Baruch, you can tell that, there are some similarities, but also just some slight differences at the same time. So it's always kind of nice to just get that big picture overview. Always happy to go in and, walk you through Zicklin CareerLink. So I hope that was helpful, especially in searching for OCR positions, the job alerts, filtering by info sessions, and the different types of events, and then of course keeping the policies in terms of use at front of mind, because again, these are really important because they help us maintain our relationships with the firms that participate on campus. We want to make sure that we're all representing ourselves, well, representing the college well, the School of Business well. So thank you for your participation in OCR. We really appreciate it. So if you have any questions at all, let us know. Feel free to comment down below. Um, and again, this is just the first of the upcoming videos here on OCR Central. So any questions, let us know. We're happy to help and talk to you soon.